Y'all still with me? That's what I love to hear. Thank you so much for joining us for the launch of the Writers Across the Diaspora program. Yes. This program has been in the making for over a year, but this is a testament, don't let go of the vision. The dream can become reality. You have incredible partners who show up and say yes to make magic happen, which is bringing in these incredible Irish writers, Nithy Kasa and FELISPEAKS. If you don't know who I am, my name is Amanda Johnston. I'm the founder and executive director of Torch Literary Arts. I'm also the 2024 Texas Poet Laureate. My work with Torch, especially when we're supporting incredible Black women poets from around the world and across the diaspora, is my duty to be a good host here and representative for Texas poets. So y'all, maybe look good. This program is made possible with support from the City of Austin Cultural Arts Division, the Burdine Foundation, the Poetry Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts, Texas State University English Department, Culture Ireland, the Consulate General of Ireland, Austin, and the Carver Museum, and individual donors like you. Round of applause for our partners. Thank you so much to Christine and Carrie Adams and everyone here at the Carver for continually opening your doors to your beautiful space. We love working with another Austin historical Black institution. It makes sense for Torch to be here with the Carver, so thank you for always welcoming us back home. And now I'd like to introduce one of our incredible partners from the Consul General of Ireland, Robert Hall, will say a few words to also welcome you to this incredible partnership and program. Thank you.
I'm going to just take this off for a moment. Is that okay? It's a little echoing. Maybe I'll step back. Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to see you all here this evening. My name, as Amanda said, is Robert Hall. I'm Ireland's Consul General to Texas. If you were not aware, the Irish government has an office representing our country in this state and in this region. We're based out of Austin, and it's my privilege to head that office up. And I want to just echo some of the thanks that have been made, firstly, to Amanda Johnson, the Texas Poet Laureate and Director of Torch, to the team at Torch that have put this event on, to our hosts here at the Carver Museum, and to our guests from Ireland, Nithy Kasa and FELISPEAKS. As Amanda said, this project has been a long time coming. It came out of some conversations that we had with another great partner in Austin Batcave, and learning about Amanda's timing and connection with Ireland. We hoped that it would run earlier this year in February, which felt like a great moment. February is when we celebrate St. Bridget's Day in Ireland, so we celebrate the creativity and the talent of Irish women. And that month is also Black History Month here in the US, and it would have been a lovely synergy. We didn't manage it for various reasons, but it's still great to be having this event with two very talented Irish Black women writers during what is Black History Month in Ireland this month. So there's a nice little synergy there. We're doing it at a different time of year. I don't know why, but we do. And it's just great to have this space to connect and to celebrate the talent of Black women writers in our communities. I'd like to say something briefly about Ireland before we begin, as I'm here representing the Irish government. I expect there's varying levels of knowledge and familiarity amongst the audience with my country. We talk in Ireland about being a global island. In fact, global island is the title of the Irish government's strategy for its international engagement, our work to promote our business, our cultural promotion, and our diplomacy. And we're a global island because we need to be. We're an island of 5 million people in the country, 7 million people on the island in total. And there is a sense and a recognition, I think, both in government but within our society, that we can't isolate ourselves from the rest of the world. Frankly, we tried it for a couple of decades when we first got self-government. It really did not work very well. But we're also a global island because of our diaspora, because of our people. And Irish people have travelled to all corners of the globe. Sometimes the reality was that they were forced to leave our country and find other places to go and live. But when they got there, they made remarkable connections in business, in government, in sport, and in culture. And that's particularly true here in the United States, including here in Texas. And Ireland is also increasingly becoming a global island because more people from around the world are coming to Ireland and making their home there. And we have new diasporas that are forming in Ireland. And that's bringing wonderful richness and diversity to contemporary Irish society and to our culture. And as the Irish Government's office here in Austin, we're continually looking for ways that we can showcase modern Ireland to audiences in Austin and in Texas in all of their diversity as well. Whilst Ireland has seen significant social change in recent decades, we certainly have not got everything right. For all the progress that we've made, there are still many things that we're grappling with as a country and a society. And one of the things about cultural programs that I think is great and is a strength of them is that they create spaces for honest encounters. Spaces, frankly, that diplomats like myself have a much more difficult time to be able to step into. I don't know what our speakers tonight are going to share, but I do know that some of their work confronts some of the challenges that we have in Ireland. And that's important work, and these are important issues. And maybe there are topics and things that will resonate or connect with some of you here. My hope is that through this event tonight, and through the program that has run this week with the different partners, whether in conversations that celebrate or conversations that challenge, new connections might be found. So thank you again to our guests from Ireland. Thank you to Torch for your openness to partnering with the Consulate on this project. Thank you to all of you that have come out on a Friday evening. I know there's a great program in store. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Robert. And thank you to the rest of the consulate that is here. We also have Nithy here with us, Vice Consul, and we have Rebecca here from the consulate. We know it takes many hands to make great programs happen. Thank you so much for being with us and helping this program happen tonight. Now, a little bit more about Torch Literary Arts. Torch is a 501c3 nonprofit organization established to publish and promote creative writing by Black women. We publish contemporary writing by experienced and emerging writers alike. Our programs include the Wildfire Reading Series, creative and professional development writing workshops, the annual Torch Retreat, and special events throughout the year, and now, what we hope to be an annual event, the Writers Across the Diaspora program. And we bring international Black women writers from around the world right here to Central Texas to share their original work. We also have more information online. You can read our digital publication, Torch Magazine, for free at torchliteraryarts.org. We invite you all to visit the website, subscribe to the newsletter, and stay involved. Follow us on social media. It is our work to continue amplifying these incredible Black women writers and making a home for them here in Central Texas as part of the larger literary landscape. And now, allow me to introduce our incredible poets this evening. I'm going to introduce them both, and then they will come up and read one after the other. Nithy Kasa is a Congolese-Irish poet whose work is featured on the Adrian Vinkerhoff Poetry Foundation website, the University of Galway's archive, the Special Collections of University College Dublin, Poetry Ireland Review, and others. Her debut collection of poetry, Palm Wine Tepper and the Boy at Jericho, was selected by the Art Council of Ireland for Read More for Culture Night Ireland 2022. and was listed among the top poetry books of 2022 by the Irish Times, and was shortlisted for the Bishop Poetry Prize in 2023. FELISPEAKS is a Nigerian-Irish poet, performer, playwright from County Longford, as well as being a member of the Poetry Ireland Board of Directors formerly appointed. Felicia is a member of the poetry collective We Are Griot. FELISPEAKS is an artist in residence with Access Ballymun and Visual Carlo. FELISPEAKS has been commissioned by the Irish Repertoire Theatre and Fish Amble, the new play company for the Transatlantic Commission for Black Irish Artists. Please know those are very abbreviated descriptions of their incredible work. Learn more about them in your program and online at torchliteraryarts.org. But first, please welcome Nithy Kasa.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. You know, you start writing from school as a teenager, you don't expect yourself to get to the places that we found ourselves tonight. So it is incredible to be here. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm going to start with just a very simple poem. So it was published by, so the book is called Things Fall Apart, Eccentric in Our Hold. So the Irish Embassy in Nigeria published this book. So it's a collection of Irish writers mixed with Nigerian writers. So it was published around this time last year to celebrate, you know, the Things Fall Apart, the famous Nigerian novel, and that went along with the Yeats celebration as well. So I'm going to read a poem that I have in it. It's untitled because I couldn't decide what title to give it, and apparently the editor didn't read it, so she has it untitled. This man on the riverbank is speaking the straws. He's speaking the reeds on the other side, at the riverbank. The shape of him dipped in the water's mouth, two rhizomes that cannot breed on the ground. All gazes meet, we hold it, shy away, pick straws, I tell him things, water swallows him, pick straws, starving, my skin begazes. He says nothing. He's picking rushes on the other side at the river bank. The wink, the silent fat of a cow, the wing a mud. He throws a bundle over his shoulder. Touch, I think he wants a cottage in the leather too. His nose, a structure by Picasso. He looks up in a way I caught his eyes. If the river was clear or masked, this man would pour my songs from the throat of its waves. If the ground were dry with no fall, I would walk to this man picking straws on the other side of the riverbank. If the ground were dry with no falls, I would walk to this man picking straws on the other side of the riverbank.
Yeah.
I don't know what it means, that poem, I don't know what it means, but apparently it's what I want to explain. So I'm going to, well, from my speaking, if you haven't noticed yet, I have an accent. And I was born in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, just a little town outside of the capital called Kinshasa. But I grew up in Ireland, so I spent all my teenage years in the west of Ireland, Galway. And when I came, my generation was the very first generation. Our people in Africa were being born in Ireland. Well, always Irish, black Irish. but very few. But I feel like my generation was really that generation who were being born in Ireland, that you can look at a black child and say, that's an Irish one, born here. So the only difference really that there was between us who came and those who were born here with the accent. So that's when you get the, oh, you're from, you somebody with a very thick accent, Irish accent. It's like, yeah, you're home. And they ask when you spoke, it's like, okay, where is that coming from? Where are you from? You know the question, where are you really from? So for a long time, you can't really describe yourself as an Irish woman. I had trouble describing myself as an Irish woman. Now I do call myself a Congolese Irish because I am. Every time I go back home, people over there think I'm from it. And I'm like, okay, you're not from here. And when I come to Ireland, it's like, okay, you're an immigrant. So it's like in between, I really am Congolese and Irish. But for a long time, I was trying to get, to get rid of my accent because I always thought it was giving me away. I wanted to feel home. I came to Ireland. This was my new home. I wanted to feel settled. But every time I opened my mouth, it's like, okay, where are you from? So I tried to get rid of it, but 20 years later, here we are doing it's called accent. My accent lingered at bay, bleaching skin, hips tucked into a corset, chewing English. It cleansed its feet with the salty water, then sat on a boulder, talking to itself, instructing the tongue how to pronounce, but it would do otherwise. They will know you got here by boat, not by bicycle. The days spent passing verbs through a needle's herb, knitting phrases. The prinking made you kneel to your toddler self. I came to send the struggle away. English is not mine to keep. So if you're reading the book, this baby collection, How One Tablet from the Biological, it has a lot of my grandparents in it. It's because I was raised by my grandparents. So I was a really that us spoiled people raised by your grandparents. So when I was writing the book, the previous series of mine, I can not the not that, they were just all over the place. So I'm going to read two poems about my grandparents. One of them is about my paternal, my grandfather, the other one is from my grandfather. So the herbalist, my grandfather was one of those old African men who knew the African medicines way back when we weren't allowed to get, medical care. And those were the men who cared for the community. So he owned acres and acres of land in the countryside, and he had a hospital that treated physical stuff but mental as well. So people called him the wizard. And when we went for a holiday, they feared us too because they thought us, the children, had that little bit of magic the men had. Because they used to drive people mentally ill to him. And he had those stuff that he would do, somebody would just come out of that place. No, it's like, so we just could not understand it. Even after the independence, modern hospitals, when the modern hospital just couldn't do anything for you, people would say, you need to go there. So it seemed kind of weird we developed the hospital, but they would still send them to those old African men that knew so much. But the sad part of it was, as we got independence, we became much more, we need to develop. So we're looking at the West, we're looking at the outside, and the tradition is dying. Because obviously we have to catch up with the world. We have to be better, so we have to copy everybody. And everything else was dying. And this poem came from me visiting my grandfather to the very last stage of his life. He was fixing dying. It's called The Wilderness. There once was a man who knew its tree by name, a forest whisperer. He would lay an ear like a stethoscope against the trunks as if they were habits to hear, and covered the bark's skin. He spoke fluent forestry, knew forest elements, the scents of the flora, which birds cry, planted lemongrass for tea, bitter leaf for malaria. The wizard had potions for the cursed who lost their minds. He chewed collarnuts like candy, the crunch of project seeds crashing in his mouth, audible, were all held in from a distance. The siblings from the next croft who kept us company had told us of how they carried their father to the herbalist when a snake had bitten them, almost dragging him on the way. They laid out how my grandfather tucked in their father like a child. The poor with their mortal sicknesses were left on the run when the herbalist was gone. And you couldn't take it, watching him swallow pills from the man with the white coat. I wondered then why he couldn't help himself. He who held a village. It doesn't work that way. The man who lived amongst the trees, he himself was a gem. His eyelids were the lids of jugs, jars, bottles with herbal juices. When his eyes closed, they closed with him. Yeah, this one is called Chaperone. It's one of my favorite from the collection. I call it my little poem because it's one of those poems when you release it, it's just people kept grabbing it. It's like we saw it. So every collection I had after I released that poem, they were just like, oh, it's because we saw that poem, because we heard that poem. And it gave me so much, including the book. So I had the publishers contacting me after they saw that poem. It's like, we saw you, are you interested in working with us? So I got the work with them and published the book. So it's my lovely book. So it's literally just a poem about charcoal. It's this old annex, so before we had this modern. So it's like a box where it's just a metallic box. If you put anything hot in it, it heats up. It works just like the modern kind we have. And my grandparents hated anything modern. So we had our house and we kept all the old stuff. We always had like a museum or something, hidden stuff. There were doors hidden. We would switch the door and they have a door hiding somewhere. We had a house that was just kind of things, pile of things. And the charcoal line was something that was we had in the house. Charcoal line. She pressed his shorts to her last days, squinting her eyes, facing the ridges that still stood over the years. Still iron colored deal. She liked the old ways, the iron of coal. It stayed in the cabinet, a jewel, a recipe for her lover, an alloy boxed, a double's mass shaped like a crocodile's head. Its upper lip pierced, a screw like a ring for locking the zigzagged jaw. The handle, askew on the alligator. Hot charcoal was placed inside the box for her. Quiet, sitting, a short in hand, she waited for the metal to heat, then used the iron, the same as a modern one, feeling each layer, the soft skin of her lover, her back, a bow, her trembling hand, a master. She pressed his shorts to her last days, squinting her eyes, facing the ridges that still stood over the years. So I'm just going to read, so I don't really read this poem and I'm sorry if I stumble upon it. It's a poem that means so much to me, so this is the poem that makes me emotional about reading it. Because the first time I came to America, 7-something years ago, it was in New York, and you see, in Europe, most of us black people are from the continent. So it makes a black person, really, it's like we know we're from another country, there's a way of talking that we see. So I came to America, and the first contact I had with, the first contact is that yeah, thank you. The first contact I had with a black person was going somewhere like me, meeting a black man in Europe, and I'm thinking, this man is probably Nigerian or Ghana. And I went, hi brother, and he was like, yo. And I'm like, okay, I said. The conversation kept going, and I'm like, where are you from, girl? I said, well, I'm Congolese and I live in Ireland. And he went like, Congo, where's that? And I'm like, what the hell? It's like, whoa. Oh, okay. So it was the first time I had to realize there was more than us than just from the motherland. There was so much. And I went home that day feeling a connection to talk blackness with this man. But there was also this space, this gap that I was so sad about. And I went home thinking, I spent a lot of time trying to understand that gap. How I could meet a black man and not be able to connect. It's something very weird. So it was like, we know each other, but we really don't know each other. So this poem is like me going back to the time where we knew each other, we ate together, we slept together, we sang together. And this poem is called Son of August. And it's dedicated to all my black people out here in America. I so wanted to meet you, and it's so amazing for me to be here, not just to wave from the side, but to sit down and talk to you. It's something that I looked for, it's something that I wanted, and I love that I can do. Thank you. Son of August, I know you, the fortune tellers who fled through the woods and went underwater. They were not fish, nor were they of boats. In seabeds they lived. But the hearts of your mothers, for the milk that teared on dry roads from their breasts. Yet you guarded and were tried in winter's cold. Winter skies cotton filled, you picked a cloud after another. To let in light for northern spring, the lands of the south sweetened. But I know you from Western Bay, east from where you sing Kumbaya. In Bahia, the floating island bell. You are home here and there. And you needed no one to give way. The country is yours. The motherland is mother if you want her. We entwined long before the gods became one. I remember us drinking Ireland, the Frisco Diner. A blue moon, the double bridge harp lute chorus song. You, me, the fortune teller, the cook, the herbalist, the blacksmith and midwife, the tool makers with woolly hair, the crafters of big corn, their artsmen, this aura of a people, your walk, your talk, your vibe, my God, I'm not mistaken. I know you, Son of God of August. Hello again. if you do not remember. When I finished my reading with a poem called Monasteries, I call it my real Irish poems. Because it's, you know, when you're studying poetry, and especially when you meet somebody from outside of Ireland, they go like, oh, we're looking for a new black writer to show how diverse Ireland is, so it's not just the flowers and the countryside. And I go like, what's wrong with that? I love the countryside. I love to travel Ireland for the countryside. I go to the countryside so I can see that. So yes, it's good that we can write about all the stuff, but let's keep the magic of Ireland, because it really is a magical country. And I have a poem here called Monastery. It's a little gentle poem, so I'm going to finish with that poem. So just to say thank you all so much. You've been amazing. Thank you. Monasteries. Bell towers neck long like the obelisks, proof of the country's sacerdote. A priesthood of horizons, of the quill inked Celts, Celtic crosses. The duties of the celibate travellers were speaking for an island. Peddlers at Clonmacnoise noise quietened long time ago, but the monks chancing the midlands at the light, the roofless chambers, the old stones with punctuations, lower and eerie on the ray-grass ring at Clonmacnoise, for the phantom chants missioned to the halls of the pollen bugs, to the orchards, hallowing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nithy, for sharing your incredible poetry. We are so happy to have you here with us. Thank you. Keep that energy going, and we're going to bring up our next poet, FELISPEAKS.
Hello. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Felicia. I go by FELISPEAKS. I'm a poet, performer, and playwright. I have a few poems for you guys tonight. I'm going to start with my little Irish poem. I wrote this poem called For Our Mothers. This piece is in the legal cert curriculum, which means some poor souls have to study me before they graduate. I wrote this piece a few years ago. A couple of stories attached to it, but I wrote it to honor my mother primarily and to honor others like her. You would think, because I use words I could speak, right? To honor others like her. So this is what this piece is for our mothers. Nay, I cannot fold my arms and rest, watching lonely wives rock their head ties so large, filling it with confiscated feelings, hoping shoots get knotted and bound on Sunday morning, covering tired dark eyes with white powder and red lipstick. My dears, look so bad, at least I look good. Continuing to wrap a pair of clothing around her waist, linen and lace, concealing footprints above her navel, 5 weeks old. The baby hadn't fully formed yet. She shook her head and her traditional beads clanged without rhythm, joining the noisy depression within her. My dears, look so bad, God's time was the best. The car ride to church was the same every Sunday. Words formed in meaningless conversation between gritted teeth and silent remorse, replacing apologies for cheap compliments. My wife, you look so good today. Our mothers are dancing on Thanksgiving Sunday with bitter stories in their mouths, too afraid to spit it out, their knees darkened by the weight of prayer. Teaching the daughters the necessity of a man is more important than the desire for one. Reminding budding females in graduation gowns, my dear, you're not getting any younger. When their daughters recognize new heart bruises, they reply with a stern glare, because they remember twinkles in their eyes at the first sign of love, sighing because their twinkles are not yet faded, and you're the reminder. The reminder that maybe love can unravel the secret she bundles in the privacy of clothing on Sunday morning. So, for Mama's sake, find a love that will heal her through your smile. For Mama's sake, find a love she never had. Thank you. My second piece is called Bloodlines. So it's in this whole situation as well. The funny thing about this book is I didn't know I sent this poem in because it actually isn't a poem. It's like a poetic text kind of situation. They asked me with a list of instructions, send a poem that is so and so and so, and I sent this. I sent a few and they picked this one. And I didn't expect them to pick this one. It's called Bloodlines. And I read about a couple of different types of themes, about blackness, about being in a woman's body. I read about queerness, race, spirituality, blah, 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 immigration, justice. But I also write about being a spirit being. I think it's also a really specifically African way of looking at life. Spirit first. I like to say that my writing is spirit work. Performance is spirit work, and I am carrying spirit first. So this is Bloodlines. And if gifts can stream through bloodlines, if the intricacies of a family's mandate can follow you here upon arrival, whether aware or not, there is more that flows in the blood. The chosen pinpoints in history aligned for you to crawl out of your mother emboldened. When you are one of the ones, and your gifts begin to happen to you early, your body itching for the hum of whatever you came with, remember the following. You came with its curses too. You arrived hung with your father's woes, your mother's failures, your grandmother's gait, the one that found her bent up funny on one leg. You came cursed. That is what it means to put a spirit in a skin suit. To lock an entity into a decaying thing and demand it to live. To swell with gifting. To deflate with your curses. To wear flesh. You become sin. To become a thing that dies. Nothing dies where you are from. To become a thing that cannot live where you came from, to be fully human, one must be realized. One must matter and be matter. One must materialize, one must be born. Declared to behold, you entered in tears. I hope you remember being born. The squelch, the bits clung, the burst that spat you out. Born from water, surrounded by water, here. A falsehood of a variant of a home. You enter this home anyway. Skin first, mind second, your head, your ori, enters the realm agreed to, develop the gifts, pick at the curses, both of them are yours now. Later, your offspring and their own too. To need to be seen is to need to be in sin, is to need to be fully human. Thank you. My third piece is called Green Lady. So, a few weeks ago, this is probably my newest poem in my life. A few weeks ago, I was on the Instawebs, and I came across, you know, when like you're scrolling and you're minding your business, but it refers random things to you. So I was scrolling my business, and I saw this random things that happened. This is not literally what the page was called, but it was like random things that happened in the city. So it's like something that happened in Dublin. So it was a rainy day, and this woman is wearing a green Ankara. And Ankara is like a African material. I don't know how many places have it, but I don't do that. So she's wearing this green entire outfit, long dress, and she has a headscarf on. And somebody's recording her from a bus. So all you see is the back of her head and the back of her body, and she's basically moving like this. And barefoot, in the rain, in the middle of the city center. And I remember like playing that over and over again because clearly she wasn't well, but who's to tell who was well and who isn't? But it looked really ritualistic and sad and important, and I couldn't sleep, so I had to write about her. And she was a black woman, so it was like extra layers. Anyway, green lady. Madness is only a misunderstanding of scenery. Like buttering toast on the bus with a plate on your lap, an inside performance in the open. The rest of us are much too afraid to pack our carry cold, so we watch thoughtfully. Envy morphing into shame. Audacity is scarce in Dublin right now. Home is a tight fist no one can breathe in deeply. I want to close the green lady with a name. She is St. Bridget. She's delicately expended out of her springtime midsummer. It is a devastation nobody joined her in prayer. We are all desperately behind. Blooms are an awkward thing to do in concrete. We are blossoming slower than ever before. There aren't enough gardens and picket fences for all of us. St. Bridget is at least making pavement into grass. Shouldn't we all stretch as much as we can? There is not enough space to dance unless it is outside, is where they have left us all out of sync, and she is dancing for her life. Her feet is tapping on the rain, the sky yawned. Me and you are crouched umbrella-less, heading into all directions unsure. St. Bridget is stationary and soft-moving. The season will change someday in one of these tomorrows, and her ceremony would have been complete. Thank you. Now, my next poem is called Decide. As well as mental health, we have a lot of issues in Ireland right now. Homelessness crisis is a big thing right now as well, and we are handling that poorly. We're handling it really poorly. But one of the things that I've often been frustrated about, aside from the fact that governments worldwide don't know how to take care of the unhoused, is that us, as well, the housed people, tend to just ignore them. Like, even the positioning, they're often on the floor singing in the cup, and we're like, we look past their heads, we look over them, and there's something so dehumanizing by not getting eye contact from people for hours a day. So I wrote this piece. And also it's just like, well, most of us are living paycheck to paycheck, so could be you know? So that feeling lingers with me, and actually made this movie. So yeah, I wrote a piece called Decide. A sigh, a pity before a penny, a pity before a pretty penny, 1,000 pities pass per day for the piss poor man with a pan in his hand. For a loaf, for a slice when he feels like it, for the whims of a free man, for the tunes of a fed man, for the clamour of a coin against the copper cup, the flip and curve he came to at a command. Still, a collective shame, your community shame, you climbed over my outline to forwards, gritting my teeth in the lookwork of my sleeping bag, the slight weight of my bed sheets, watching you lock us both by the tighter clutch of your belongings. I've seen your grimace, your face fall when the drink was all that could catch me, when life left me legless, hopelessly requesting nothing, digesting, repeatedly confessing the city sins of neglect. Easy to forget that we were once baptized like the rest, before we broke our bodies across O'Connell Street. We went underwater too. We were once beloved too. Thank you. This next piece is called Nithy Concrete. One of our hardest piece. See, I'm loud. I keep talking. It's my hardest piece. It's called Eating Concrete. I wrote it about a man called George Luchenko, or in Kencho. I think it's in Kencho. He was a 28-year-old man who, trigger warning, was murdered by the police in Ireland on New Year's Eve 2020. This was especially odd for Ireland because the police in Ireland don't generally carry guns, but the special police force unit does. The police was called to his house in Blanchardstown in Dublin, which is like not the nicest areas, but the police was called to his house because he was having a mental health crisis and he was holding a bread knife outside his mother's house. He was shot about 9 times in his back between the threshold of his house. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. It was shocking, and it still pains me. And I wrote this piece. Give me a second. Boys' bodies eat the streets in D15, waiting for spring to break concrete, for a resurrection. We protest, a death megaphoned in familiar white. We hung like insecure daffodils outside the garden station on the street, and the sun didn't visit and left it pelting for the rain bullets on boy's body the week before. I wasn't there, I pulled up to him by car. Their car climbing what is theirs. Everything. Their bulk bills protecting what is theirs. Everything. Almost climbing boy, almost running boy over, almost owning. They pulled up to him by traffic light. Too many lights he had changed for you to not know black is thick and permanent. He does like he owned the streets to his house. He does because he didn't know boys eat the pavement here. Their sirens cut through the estate, 13 man deep. They followed boy home. We stood on the street that ate George like wounded chess pieces, Blanche moved in and around us. Their sons eat the streets of D15 too. They pound them into the pavement, blew a black boy blind. They didn't care that his mind wasn't with him. If boy could, he'd keep his mind on him like an ID, like a travel pass, like his driver's license, like his walking papers, like his life depended on it. They didn't care he left it where he picked up the knife. That if boy could, he'd make it home. If he could see the future, copy-page black boy's body entering his mother's house, cold, at the doorstep, at the halfway mark of coming and going, boy's body chilled like Guinness glass, tipped over in the front yard, pooled on a fresh nose grave, a brown black boy, a random dust, earth. We sang hymns, a poem, a speech in another boy's voice cracking. Death drifted like a salesman, pitching sights. There's crying at home, there's sorrow at home, but still we bought it in bags full, in scars from tears, in masks heated, in folded arms of what else, what other than to wear. Another boy has eaten the pavement. Another chest full of dust. In D15. Thank you. Thank you so much. My last piece is a little bit more hopeful. It's called Day. I wrote Day in 2020 as well. I wrote Day before George happened. I wrote the day when your George happened, George Floyd. I wrote Day to challenge the notion that we could be buried. I also stole a phrase from this Greek philosopher and poet from the last century. His phrase, they tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds, is one of my favorite sayings in the world. And I basically wrote a poem based on that line. To close off before I say this piece, thank you for having me. Thank you for stopping with me, crying with me, and laughing with me. And thank you for inviting me. This is such a beautiful space that you guys are creating, Torch Wildfire Arts. This museum is incredible. I was in there, and it's part of my tribute this evening. But thank you. They tried to bury us. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds with shoots. We came from lands rich in soil with our roots. They didn't know our people could not be afraid of the dark they fear. Absorbing light to grow skin as thick as bark, as smooth as warm tarmac. They tried to bury us. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we can't be contained. They didn't know our bellies could convulse with laughter, clapping seal like at the volcano of chuckles, hacking away at the neck of our throats. They didn't know we could launch forward in unison at our own jokes and still have gravity catching this fade. Yo! They really tried to bury us. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we couldn't die in silence. They didn't know we couldn't come and go with ease. They didn't know our first mother had to deal with death, that she broke everything open with a black boy. She went land with his blood, and water first she fed it and made confident. Let there be life. They didn't know our lives and deaths would make earth remember. They tried to bury us, but they didn't know we were sound itself. There for each a stunning beat, there for each a music replicated. They didn't know our bodies spat out their oppression in dance and song and rhythm and blues. They didn't know our limbs have tasted and tested the freedom that is ours. They didn't know it's gonna be alright, starting with several hand nods, a fist and a frown. They tried to bury us.
of applause for Nithy Kasa and FELISPEAKS. We're going to do a quick shift and just move these out of the way, and then I'm going to ask our incredible poets of questions and open it up for our audience Q&A. All right? We're back. Yes? Yes. My goodness. Oh my God. Thank you so much again for sharing your incredible poetry. I'm still catching my breath, to be quite honest, but I do have so many questions. And I know I can't answer all of them, but your experience as writers, you've been writing for a very long time to still be, I would say your ages because but to have these incredible careers and to have influences from your family on the continent in Nigeria and in the Congo, and then obviously the Irish influence of your upbringing since childhood in Ireland. My first question is, can you speak a bit about the poetic influences in your life from a young age? Were there storytellers and poets in your home? And then what Irish influences were there for your development as poets?
I think for every poet really before you become a professional, I just feel like being a forward. And I came from the Congo. I was already writing poetry without knowing. I come from the land of poetry. So I have my favorite poets from Congo called Burdine and all of the songs that I sung really came from the poets. The song just wrote poetry for other people to sing. And I think it just came from the land of poets, and that was my beginning. But then when I started studying in Galway, one of my teachers, my English teacher, who happens to be a Galway poet as well, famous poet in the West. As a poet, he saw it. He was able to recognize there was something here. He brought the school magazine, because I submitted a poem in the school magazine, and he just came and dropped it on my desk. And he said, "That's very good." He said nothing else. And then as time went on, he came with a list of competitions across the country that we could do. And I suppose public speaking, that's kind of shaped me into it's like you are what you are able to do it. This is, it's something that you could do. But then again, the Irish poetry, I was writing about poetry, the poetry that I write now, poetry I learned from school. So we're talking about the Shakespeare, the Patrick Kevin, the Ivan Boland. And then I grew up again myself to learn a lot more from school than I picked up the Maya Angelou. And it's just everything. And if you read the book, My People That From the Hips, you can hear Miss Maya in there. And I love that. I think it's a combination of everything, coming from home, the Irish schooling system, and me trying to connect with the blackness in the diaspora, all of it. I think it makes my poetry.
I think for me, it's a mixture of blood and not like plain blood. I mean, like I'm starting. For me, I come from both my parents are not. They're not lawyers. They're not like artists. They're not as regular as they come. They came to Ireland, make money, send their children to school, and get on with it. But I quickly found out that my grandfather was an educator and was an avid reader, a rapid reader, whatever the word is. And I think that might have come from him, like just the general interest, because I didn't pick it up from home. I just really enjoyed words and language, and I enjoyed expression as a thing. I've been expressive for a really long time, and I think I have the joy of having key figures throughout my life to kind of keep pushing that out for me. The first year probably have been, I was in like, I don't know, 4th class. What is the equivalent of 4th class here? Like elementary school? What's that? Like 9? That's elementary, yeah. So it's about 9 when my English, you have one teacher for everything. Mrs. Morris, I talk about her all the time. Mrs. Morris basically had peeked into my copy and was like, okay? And she entered some scribblings of mine into a competition, and she, because I lived in a really small town, everywhere in Ireland is small, but I lived in a small town. And I was like runner-up in this competition in a neighboring town, and Mrs. Morris picked me up. She lived near my house. Mrs. Morris picked me up because my mom was working. Mrs. Morris picked me up and drove me all the way to the next town just to pick up my little certificate. She found value in pouring into me. She was the first person that gave me a Chimamanda book. I should have been reading, she snuck it in. She was like, she looked me dead in the eye. I was 10 years old. She goes, don't tell anyone. I said, Mrs. Morris, it was probably mistakes. I was too young to read that. She was like, you don't like it. And I thought of it, like, in retrospect, I think it's really interesting that someone like her in rural Ireland was like, this child obviously needs Black influences and needs to see themselves somewhere, and so that they can keep going. So that was really interesting. So she was definitely one of my earliest kind of encouragers and influences. But yeah, Chimamanda was probably the first one for me, and since then it's just been who sounds like my voice, who looks like that. I was always looking for ways to like understand that I was writing poetry. I found out I was writing poetry at 16. Because again, a friend explained to me that your book of thoughts is actually your book of poems. Things like that. So I was discovering poetry as I aged. And then once I found out I was writing poetry and I found out that I wanted to express myself, I was like, what's the nearest thing? Obviously, African Americans. Because slam poetry was a big thing. And I was like, I really enjoy slam poetry or performance poetry. And I was like, a lot of my influence was African American kind of ways of expressing that. Def Jam poetry was like holy grail. So those would be my earliest influences. And in terms of like Irishness, I think I was always like, they just always kind of looked at me like, okay, that's different. So I don't think I had a lot of visible Irish influences. I just enjoyed poetry. And I think I always tried to respect the art form by learning about the art form. So I learned about text poetry and performance poetry and all those things. But I can't say for the life of me that I had no influence. That would be a lie. But I think it's just had been a colorful collection of influences over the years.
Love that. And shout out to educators who pour into young poets who can see the talent and before you bring it in. Praise the educators. I wanted to ask you, talk a little bit, about finding inspiration from other writers, being then a part of, like, at an early age, even literary competitions, and we know that community, much like slam too, can build community in those ways. You're also, international travelers and performers in many different countries. What is your connection with a global literary community? Do you feel that you have one? Obviously, you're here now, and we're big fans. I love to share too. We're already very proud of Texas State University. Professors were already teaching their work before they came. So we're definitely looking for inspiration outside of it. What are your global literary communities that we should be aware of?
I feel to me, even though you start writing, it was a bit more local. You're just hanging around town, Dublin, Ireland. But it was after the book was published, I'm very surprised how people picked it up. But for me, it feels like I'm still reaching out, because obviously I'm coming to America, connecting with the Americans here, but I still have to go home and in Congo and do that. So obviously, language barrier, I'm writing in English, the Congolese do not speak English, we have in Ghana and other stuff to do, so that's something else that I have to work on. But I feel like I'm starting to open up to it, and see where it will take us. Yes.
Oh, in terms of global movement, I think it's in the past few years that I've had the joy and privilege of being like asked to different countries or different places to perform my work. And I think more than anything, and I know I shouldn't be, but I'm just really surprised that people resonate with it. Because you know when you write, when you first start writing, it's a really private affair. It's a really personal thing. It's your desk, paper, pen. And then the first time you perform something like someone says, oh, teach me, you're like, oh, that's my inner business, that's my inner, it's also part of why I'm really, like, I don't know how to do what Nithy does, which is like publish and leave it alone and leave it up to interpretation. That is like the most panic-ridden idea I've ever heard. So like, I think how I like also control that is by performing, like, so you get it right and understand that this is what it should sound like. So like, I haven't had so many places where art travels without me going with it. So that's been a new experience and that's been really exciting. America has been an interesting place for me because I feel like where I got to learn my stuff is with slang, so that resonates here a lot. In other parts of Europe, I'm just a really interesting shiny toy. Run and smile, it's fun. With back home or back at the motherland, the last time I was in Nigeria, or the first time I went back to Nigeria as an adult, I did this thing where I was like, I'm going to go for, it's called livery festivals and art events, and so I planned to imagine, like, honestly, I'm not crazy. It's the first time you go as an adult to this other country, or my country that I've never gone back to. I went for 3 weeks and I was like, I'm going to go to all the festivals, I'm going to hit all the hot spots, I'm going to do this and this and this and the other. And I remember when I landed, it was the most intimidating thing I've ever experienced, but it was also the most heartwarming thing I've ever seen. Because references that really like small lines in my poems that are like hidden gems for other Nigerians, now it's not a hidden gem because I'm home. Does that make sense? So that was a really exciting thing to play with and to see, and then to just also be stunned by the fact that, like, you're not the only bad bitch. And I think, like, being, like, predominant white countries as that TV where you think, oh, like the shiny bad bitch. You think you're the baddest that ever did it, and then you go home and you're like, we're all the baddest that did it. That's my experience with the local lecturer.
Sorry, I have to, and specifically Black women.
Yeah. That part, yeah.
Because there's something that really happens where I think it comes also from our experience of, we don't have time to play around. There's business that needs to happen, there's people to care for, there's always things to do. So even in our artistry, I don't have time to play around, and I also don't have time not to do what I get excited to do. So in that way, we become innovators and trendsetters just by doing what it is that we have to do. And it shows up the way that the artists become from our unique experiences and unique bodies. I want to open it up to the audience for a couple questions here. Like I said, I have to watch myself or we just be kicking on. Any questions from the audience? Don't be shy. I see the writers in the room, I know.
evening, and thank you so much for your words, for your style. Oh my goodness, thank you for that. My question is about, I was thinking about it linguistically, code switching, but also just geographically being in different spaces. I learned that half of my heritage is Trinidadian. And so there are things that I can say in a kind of Trinidadian English that mean and feel different, and I write different when I speak in that language. I wonder for you if linguistically there are things that you can say in different languages, this connected to what you're saying about writing in English versus writing another language, but then also in different spaces, if there is a different poet that shows up in different geographical spaces too, going home to Nigeria, and then the poems you write there feel different, because the performance feel different. So just language-wise when you travel, but also geography-wise when you travel, do different poets show up in you?
It definitely does. Like I said, I speak a couple of languages, and time went over because of the success. Especially people from back the Congo, they were looking to have a version of it either in Lingala or French. So I was talking to some, translator. They were like, yeah, if you speak the language, you should be able to translate it yourself. So I started working on it, and my God, it's impossible to do that across the line, because the way we use language in English, it's just not the same thing. And the same poems that I would write as an Irish woman to an Irish audience, it's just not something that the Congolese would receive. I find I started writing the book in French. It's exactly the same thing, but it just does not make sense to myself when I'm reading it in French to begin with, let alone taking it home, and it's like the poems we have. This is very Irish. It is very Irish. It's a very Irish way of writing poetry. And the reading as well, it's very, for an Irish, that's the community I grew up with. This is how we read poetry, this is how we write poetry. And to go into the Congo, even outside of that Irish space, there is struggle when you go to the languages and the energy that goes with it. It's just an art that I feel was created within the island, and it works better within the island. And if I try to take this, make it something else, another language or another space, you're gonna have to make it work, because it's not the same thing. And if I am going to write for the Congolese, I would have to write in a language we speak, in a language we understand, in a way we communicate. Because doing the Irishness over there, it's just not working. It isn't working. So I have to figure out how to make it work, because it's absolutely different. And you are a different person as well when you move places. And what I found, for me, it's when I'm in Ireland, that's when I write about Congo the most. It's almost as if I'm already here, but my spirit is somewhere else. And when I'm in Congo, I tend to write about Ireland a lot. It's like the poem I read, Monastery, that was written in Congo. That's me outside, midnight, in the African dark heat with the mosquitoes. Writing about, oh no, it's like that. So yes, it goes with your spirits really, and the language, the way we communicate with people. It's like it being in a room with black women. The conversation is different than anywhere else we can be, with the expression. We were having lunch, and you saw that part of you, Nigeria, when you connect with, African Americans, Nigeria, every part of you that comes, every spirit you meet, I feel like we alter ourselves to connect with that. So yes, absolutely. You do have to change.
I agree with that, actually. I think for me, it's been such a visceral experience, the changes. I think I'm just such an expressive personality. I can't hide my expressions in different places. But there's poems that I've written, and I've written them with a Nigerian voice, but have performed them in my polished voice. So for instance, the first poem that I did for our mothers, when I wrote it in a very Nigerian voice. Like I even had to express some of those lines in a Nigerian voice because some of those lines are my mother's voice. So how else to say it? For instance, the first line of that poem says, I'm Yoruba. That's my ethnic tribe in Nigeria. Inde is from the Igbo language, and I'm not Igbo. Yet, the only way I can start that poem is Inde. And the only, the English explanation for Inde is like, my dear, or like something like that. It's such a sacred kind of tone to say. And so when you're addressing somebody that you want to care for, that's in that way, like addressing my mother or addressing mothers, I could only begin with Inde. And so there's poems like that, and there's poems that I write with the Polish voice, and that must be performed with the Polish voice. Even Concrete is very black, but it's still very West. That's a different experience or a different expression. The first time I performed in Lagos, Nigeria, it was church. Not that I performed in a church. The experience was church. So that never happened in the West. At most, maybe you get ferocious clicks. Maybe but in Lagos, Nigeria, they had seen the poem with you. And you must stop so they can express themselves. And that was really interesting. That was fascinating for me. And it gave me a different type of power. I remember I was performing, I started 2 lines and somebody said, understood it. There was space for it, and I understood it, and a different version of me existed in that space. Whereas if I was, for instance, the last one I did, right, it takes a space. In the middle of that 4 hours poem, somebody said, lost all my lines. I had to make up the rest of the poem. Whereas, because I wasn't expecting that presence in that space, that's not the personality that showed up to entertain me. So I had to keep going in a different journey. Whereas in Lagos, Nigeria, I'm not using the point because you are waiting for me to continue. So there's a different energy there, and there's a different way to show it up there. But in terms of like code switching, I code switch within my poems, but I'm so rogue and rebellious that I show up authentically in each of them.
Thank you. Another question? Oh, I got a mic? Yeah. Okay.
Hey y'all, it's so funny. I have so many feelings from this guy. Also, my voice sounds really deep in this, and I just do this. But yeah, it's been so nice to see like Nithy and FELISPEAKS, and we all had dinner yesterday, and like just the conversation around code switching is very like personal to me. It's like I'm Nigerian American. Immediately FELISPEAKS is coming at me. I'm like, my sister, how like just going in, and it's not every day that you can be in that space. And so I'm just curious and excited to hear you talk, both of you talk more about poetry as like body work, like I feel like the creation of poems, I had a very emotional reaction to the poem that I think it's FELISPEAKS, whenever you were talking about going to New York, and then that idea of feeling so close but so disparate among fellow Black people. And that one, yes, it was unity, yeah. And I just felt like there was just a lot of emotions, I think, for that, because I feel like even when you are so tied to your culture, my family, everyone's from Nigeria. I'm just the first generation here, and I visited a lot as a kid, but I didn't really go much as an adult. And so it's a very emotional experience to try to embody language and culture and put that into your writing. And it feels like both of you have a very, you're very in tune with pace, and you're in tune with how, I can feel your bodies moving as you're saying the words. I know that's part of poetry, but as a screenwriter, I'm like, oh, what was the process of sitting down and taking the feelings in your literal body and translating them to words when you have such a personal and visceral connection to the work you're doing. Just burped. Sorry.
We accept and receive.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Que tu macarena.
I started poetry when I was learning for myself, but publicly it was the Poetry Aloud competition, where it's somebody else's poem that you do have to say it aloud. Then it's not really about anything else than how you say it, and you become aware about how you speak poetry. And that stayed with me, so it's one of my processes of writing. So every time I write a piece, before I can send it, I have to read it and I have to listen to it. And I found myself very often changing words just because the voice I wanted to give it did not come out when I read the poem. And it's like, I did not want this word here, I need to switch it to something else. And sometimes, it's the voice really you have in your head you want the poem to have, the way you're performing it, well, the way I perform my poems, it's the way I write them to be, really, the way I read them out loud, and I'll go around the place just listening to them. I'm listening to myself, and if anything that doesn't come up to that voice, or that person, or the body you're giving it, I would switch it. I would sacrifice the form or the word, just so the poem can have a voice of itself that I want it to have. So that's how I really well when it comes to the voice, and I suppose that's how I am aware of where to stop exactly, because I wrote it down. I wanted it to stop here. I want to pause here. And this is where I will carry on when I perform it. And it's exactly what I wanted. It's all over.
Okay, I love that answer because it's not that dissimilar to screenwriting. I think a lot of times that's how we process it.
I think for me, I used to write out of a place of necessity. Now, you get commissions, you don't write. But I first started writing from a place of necessity because poems would arrive. And I said this to somebody and they were like, you should get that checked out. But poems would arrive and would sit under my skin. And I wouldn't be able to I wouldn't need to sleep, I wouldn't do anything else until, sometimes if I'm busy, I write, I wouldn't even write sentences, I just write words. And they're not even following each other, it's just like, okay, soap, tissue, necklace, okay. And I have to keep throwing out those words until the poem is done. And sometimes, if I do have the time, I sit down and I write until there isn't anything left, and then I start arranging them. But often, like Nithy, I have to read the lines as I'm writing them. And I don't care too much about the cadence, it's more about what the sentence I'm trying to translate. So if the sentence is correct, and if I used to say if it fits in the mouth, then it's right. If it doesn't fit in the mouth, if I'm stumbling over my own words that I wrote, girl, that's not okay, right? And for me, I don't stop at the same place every time. Once the poem is complete and I'm satisfied with all the words and the sentences and how it's arranged, then it becomes a breathing thing of its own. And I'm too scatterbrained to stay in the same rhythmic flow. So the poem changes because I change. And not because the text is changing, just because the flow is changing. And so they, for instance, that I just did, I don't perform they like that. I perform they differently every time. Or even concrete, like it has different pauses different times. There's some poems that because of the day and because of the mood in the room, I sound surprised. Do you know what I mean? Like a soft spoken, and I have like hardcore deep voice version. But some poems just have a different life depending on the day and depending on the audience. And sometimes I'll have a set list, get on stage. Like I did it today actually. I have a set list to get on stage and I'm like, this poem doesn't work because this room is not ready for this, or the room is too this or that. So sometimes it changes based on the energy in the room. I just want to like respect my art in that way, by letting it teach me what it was.
Thank you. That is a wonderful segue. That's all of the time we have for questions, but we do have workshops tomorrow, right back here at the Carver. So if you have registered, if you still need to register, go online to torchliteraryarts.org and register to attend the workshops tomorrow afternoon that start at 1 o'clock right here with Nithy Kasa and FELISPEAKS. We'll also provide a light lunch in between. It'll be a wonderful afternoon of writing. Ask more questions about their practice, about their process, about their work in general. A few other things. It is my job as Executive Director of Torch Wildfire Arts to point out that in your programs there is a QR code. We are a nonprofit, and your donations go a long, long way to make events like tonight possible. So if you are able to, please make a donation. There's also a survey QR code, which is very important as well. We want to hear from you. We want to know how this program resonated with you. We want to hear about other things you might be interested in seeing from Torch Literary Arts and from our partners. That survey is just as important and impactful as your donations. So please take a moment to scan both of those. I do hope to see you at the workshop tomorrow. If you're interested in able to come. Our next program is also the salon. If you haven't been in the salon yet, do come out October 22nd to Antone's. That is our open mic. Everyone is welcome. Everyone can share. We have a good old time over at Antone's. And before you leave, make sure you see Nithy and get a copy of her book. You do not want to miss the opportunity to buy her book and have it signed here. Thank you so, so much to all of you for coming. Thank you to our partners.
Yes, sir. I'm not too fast there. We're just Amanda. This week we spent here everything we said earlier about us wanting to cry every day we mentioned that. Here. It's personal what you do. We feel the love that you give and how you care for other people. And one thing we know about people that give, very often we forget to give. You have taken good care of us. And we want to make sure that we love you and we're here
To see it, yes, we love you.
I'm so mindful, not only for what you've done for this week, but what you do for Black women, for Black writers. We appreciate you and we love you.